morning it is here.
Good morning.
Can you please tell the people watching who you are and where we're at?
Yes, I'm Jeroen Blijleve. We're now at the Slachthuis 13. And this place is the rehearsal room of my band, E.T. Explore Me, which we share with Buster from various projects. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay. And Jeroen, thanks for your time. Now, I can imagine that a number of people watching this and know what your role is in the sort of Haarlem culture scene per se, but maybe you can fill that in for the people who don't know exactly what you do.
Yes, of course. I think most people know me from my work at the Patronaat. I've been working there for 20 years and had different roles there. Mostly responsible for the creative part of Patronaat. And besides that, I'm a musician as well. So I have this band, E.T. Explore Me, and some other projects going on. But maybe we talk about that later.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Patronaat. You are, like you said, you're in charge of the creative side of the Patronaat, a lot of the booking, putting together the festivals like Clico Fest.
Yeah.
When the whole situation around the coronavirus hit in the Netherlands, and let's say narrow it down to Haarlem, what were you busy with then? What was the Patronaat busy with? I'm sure you had a lot of things lined up for the spring, summertime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I was actually here on the day the announcement came with the corona. Which was kind of weird because I was talking with some people about doing stuff here. A lot of creativity going on.
In the Slachthuis.
In the Slachthuis.
Maybe we could just take a moment to explain also what the here is. What is the Slachthuis, or what it was the potential, or what was happening here at that moment?
Yeah, the Slachthuis is actually the former Slachthuis of Haarlem. And it's been empty or unused for decades. And
since?
I think since the 90s.
And since the Daisy Bell was kicked out of here.
Yeah, which is now almost 10 years ago, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so you had this rehearsal place here, actually right here. And when that was closed, this whole discussion started about the need of a rehearsal place for musicians, because it's really weird that we have like the Patronaat, or you can play anywhere in Haarlem and then you don't have the place to rehearse. So after years of talking, finally Haarlem decided to start a pop centrum here, which is going to be built after the summer. And in the meantime, we have a rehearsal place here as a sort of a bridge to the new place. And to make this Slachthuis more known by the public, we started doing events here already. So that was actually what we were talking about. So it's a sort of a working place for musicians. Bands are recording here, doing all kinds of stuff. And we did these concerts and various things. Yeah, and then Corona broke out. So, and I'm really concentrating on this. This is a large project for me at the Patronaat to start this pop centrum. So that was why I was here. I practically live here.
So the Patronaat will, once the pop centrum is hopefully up and running, Patronaat will be overseeing it.
Yeah, that's still the idea.
Okay.
But things changed a lot because it's a very difficult time for Patronaat now, for all the venues in Holland, especially because there's no, we don't know where we're at. Things are starting opening now, but for the venues it's still unsure.
Is the Patronaat subsidized by local government?
Yeah, yeah.
And then what percentage of money from the government comes, and what is?
It's about 70%. It's our own income, and 30% is subsidy.
Okay, so it's a nice chunk, but still not that much.
No,
okay.
No. We really. It's basically. It's the horeca, so the selling of beer is what we need to survive. And I mean, I think it's for every business. 1 month you can maybe survive, maybe 2, but after 2 or 3 months, it's gonna be a problem, and that's what we're facing as well now. So there's some help from the government, and which is really good, but it's a situation we can't prolong for a long time. So now we have this focus at Patronaat to keep the Patronaat alive, and this other project, which is a big project, we have to decide, and we're gonna talk about it after summer, how we're gonna do that.
And Patronaat is able to sustain itself throughout the summer?
With help.
With help.
Yeah. Otherwise it's impossible.
Okay.
And what you see now, it's like, it seems that it's easier now, because now you have the 100 people or even more if you have the 1.5 meters, but 1.5 meters is impossible inside a venue to work with, even outside. So for the whole industry, the music industry, it's still as fucked up as it was.
You had a few tryouts recently, or they're still going on, I believe, and they're more focused in the small hall, I believe, or in the main hall?
Main hall now.
Okay, and that's on a normal pre-corona evening, how many people could fit in the main hall?
Up to 1,000.
Up to 1,000. And now with the new rules, how many can you fit?
Not even 100.
Not even 100, so it's 1/10 maybe.
Yeah. And you have
if my
the
math
same
is right.
expense. You have the same expenses with a lot less people, and what I said, you don't sell any beer. It's just more expensive for us to open than to stay closed. Actually, it's
really?
as simple as that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And over the last few months, you started with doing streaming shows via the Patronaat. Has that been, what's the response from that? From bands as far and public?
Well, the idea was that we were so busy trying to survive, and there's 150 people working at the Patronaat, and what I noticed is that...
Is that 150 people on payroll?
No, and volunteers as well.
Okay. How many people?
50-50.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those 50% people on payroll, you still have to pay them their salary, the vacation money, all that. Okay.
Yeah. But mentally, it became a sort of frustration, because we're all doing this with a lot of passion, and then suddenly shows stopped, events stopped. So I thought it's good mentally to do something with live music, to start up, and not even only for Patronaat and for the people who work there, but also for the musicians and everyone, people like you, who make a living out of it, and suddenly everything stopped. So it was kind of maybe you can call it bezigheidstherapie, which works, because especially in the beginning, everybody was happy to do something. But to me, it kind of changed after a while, because it's got nothing to do with the live experience you should have. So it was kind of depressing in a way for me after a while. to do this, because you have all these protocols, these rules. Can't sit after a show, talk with people. It's everything live music shouldn't be about. And the frustration of canceling shows and then canceling shows for the second time and even the third time, and every time we're like, it's like an administrative job. It's nothing creative about it, because you're only like rescheduling shows. And especially for creative people, I think it's very frustrating. So as I am responsible for the creative part of Patronaat, it's kind of hard, confronting as well, because my life used to be like 4 or 5 nights a week. I would be at shows or touring or working hard with a lot of passion, and then when that stops, it's also confronting to yourself. Not in the beginning, because in the beginning it was like, okay, I can do all these things which I didn't have the time for before. But then and it was also the band stopped because the singer is working in healthcare, so he couldn't rehearse.
E.T. Explore Me.
E.T. Explore Me, yeah. And so the only thing where which get my energy up stopped as well, and I try to be as how do you say
proactive,
onafhankelijk.
Okay, yeah.
Independent,
yeah.
And then I noticed I'm very dependent on the band. So then I started learning this computer program to make music on my own. So I built this small studio in my house, and I thought I don't want to be dependent on making music on anyone. So it was kind of a good thing, because now I can do whatever I want. But I also kind of hated the thing that people started to do funny things in Corona time just to make it sort of funny, and I don't think it's funny at all.
Like what kind of things?
Yeah, well, people do like circus acts in their living room, and it's so funny, and this is what I do during Corona time. I think you can better use this time to think about things, what's happening now in the world, and try to prepare yourself on a new situation, because this is going to take a long time. So I actually wanted to have the room in my head as well, just to prepare myself on this new way, which might take a long time. I don't want to wait. A lot of people were waiting like, okay, well, May 1st, it's changing. September 1st, everything will open. It's not going to open. This is going to be dragging along for years in the music industry. So I don't want to be like on September 1st, oh no, it's not happening, and then I get depressed. No, I want to just be prepared.
Why do you feel that way, that you think it's going to prolong itself for years? What's your instinct?
Economically, financially, it's a huge problem. So, like in any other business, people will get fired. International tours won't be starting up until it's definitely sure you can play again, and you work almost a year ahead. Festivals, they don't get a verzekering. Insurance for a pandemic, so they actually can't start up organizing festivals for the next summer. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's what's happening. So for us, this year is over, and probably the beginning of next year as well. And
will the Patronaat be attempting or
so
continue
even if
to
Corona, if the meter and a half will be gone, it still takes a year to start up again. So that's actually what we're at now.
as far as doing the shows that you can do in the Patronaat in the main hall with the, I assume there's what, like little sections on the ground everybody has to stay in, or table sitting.
Yeah.
How many shows do you have planned for that, with that so far?
I don't know, 10, 15, but we kind of stopped putting a lot of energy into it. So if artists want to do it, we do it, but we're not actually booking shows.
Okay, sort of letting it all ride for the moment. It's
all kind of low profile.
Yeah. Because I assume even in the small hall, what we mentioned earlier in the conversation, that's what, about 30, 40 people?
Yeah.
Something like that?
And you're sitting at a table and you have all these rules, so you have to ask yourself if that's fun to do as an audience or as a band. And I think some music is very good to do it in this way. But I was thinking of doing the Click-Off Fest Haarlem on Air thing and with an audience. And then I thought, I'm not going to do it. The Click-Off Fest is all about people crawling over each other and through each other. And I know I'm not going to be able to control that. So I thought punk shows or rock and roll shows, I'm not going to do that with an audience because it's asking for problems.
I know Ivo did a sort of online Facebook questionnaire if people would be up for his yearly punk rock room, his live festival, his birthday party, and that he did want to go through with that, even with a sitting audience.
Yeah, because Ivo did this question, and then a lot of people said, "Oh, yeah, if we're only gonna if we're able to see shows, it's okay for us."
Okay.
So for a lot of people, it's actually because they if you're used to go to shows like 2-3 times a week, I mean, people are missing it.
Yeah.
And that's what we noticed with the Haarlem on Air shows as well. It was like a relief for a lot of people. So I have to remind that as well, because for me, I mean, I've got my band, I've got 3 bands, I'm doing my thing. But for a lot of people, it's like nothing.
Have you, with ET Explore, you had an opportunity to play for an audience in the last months?
No. We've been asked to do online things, but we decided to not do that.
Why?
Well, actually, what I just said, it's for us, it's not interesting.
Okay.
It's nice to maybe record something here in the rehearsal room, but to go to Eindhoven to do a streaming show in a black box, and then right after it you have to pack your things and go home. It's got nothing to do with why we play live.
And probably they can't afford to pay the band or even pay the travel expenses.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
So we decided to use the time now to record. And you see that happening with a lot of bands now.
Yeah.
So I think after summer it will be like sort of a baby boom of albums coming out. I mean, which is a good thing. And I think as a musician, you just have to let the creativity flow. So that's what people are doing now.
It's going to be a lot of Corona anthems after.
I think so. Yeah. So we're planning. It's starting now. We had this tour in May through Europe with the band, which got cancelled. We had a few shows in August in France, which just got cancelled this week. But at the same time, our European booker emailed us that he's starting to build up tours again for 21.
Yeah.
So it's starting, but it's unsure. So now we thought if we bring out a record in March, it's before the festival season, so maybe the timing will be good.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for that. We're going to plan to release our album that we recorded in this past January, next January.
Yeah.
So that's a long time to sit on something.
Yeah, because actually you want to be working on a new thing. Because,
we already are.
Yeah, but then it's kind of weird because then you release an album which is kind of old and it doesn't feel right. I know how that feels. But yeah, well, you have to release like King Gizzard, like 6 albums next year.
Just keep making it. Well, it's a good thing that bands. How is it now in the Patronaat has, of course, the Slachthuis oefeningruimtes just around the corner from the Slachthuis 13. Is there a sort of protocol for the bands in the rehearsal spaces? Is it sort of like every?
Yeah, it's the distance. So we made this protocol where we've got the same Albert Heijn spatlappen and crosses on the ground where you have to be at, and for singers there's a different distance you have to keep up. But we're open, which is good because we got a lot of requests from bands that they wanted to rehearse again.
Yeah, I think it was an itch. I know that we had it as well. We didn't do anything for maybe 2 months, and then it was kind of like, all right, we have to do something. We're all healthy. Let's just do it. Yeah.
And it's for me it felt kind of like a confirmation, because if you're I started working in the music industry, I never thought about it. I just did it and everything just went along.
How old were you then?
Well, I started working in a record store from, I think I was 15 or something.
Which record store?
It was a record store in Lisse.
Lisse.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he had a lot of collector's items, so all the record shops went there to buy their like the Rolling Stones, like 50 albums of the Sticky Fingers, and so I met all these owners of record stores, and then I got asked for the plaatboef, started working in Leiden, and then I started working in Haarlem. So I think I was 19 when I was the boss of the plaatboef Haarlem. So it just, and from there on, just things.
Yeah, plaatboef Haarlem, that was a monumental place.
I know.
What is there now? Is it the Erica, sort of for like creams and healthy sort of a shop?
I think something like that. Yeah, it was on the other side where Sounds still is.
Yeah.
Sounds was there as well when plaatboef was.
I think next to the Handyman.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was. There was a really good time, and it feels like sort of like the mine workers, that a job which doesn't exist anymore because you had a lot of secondhand stuff, and you could still smoke in the shop, and all these junkies came in and out there, and it was like it was great.
What was the music scene like in Haarlem back then? This is then the mid-90s and begin 2000, right?
Yeah.
plaatboef closed early 2000s, 2003, 4, or something like that.
And I think I left a little bit before the record shops just kind of collapsed because just the sales weren't as good anymore. I started organizing festivals from the plaatboef because after a few years, you just know how to sell records, and I thought, and you had this rich squatting scene in Haarlem then. And for the young generation, they don't know how that was, but it was a very different time. You had a lot of illegal parties and a lot of freedom. I mean, the 90s were way better than the 60s. There was money. I'm there was just anything. So and you could be a gruncher going to techno parties and the other way around. It was just, now it's very different. Everybody was just doing their things, and you could go on all night or even for days, and it was good. So I started organizing events in squatting places, and then I got noticed by Chef, who was the former programmer of Patronaat. I did some things in Patronaat as well, and he asked me if I.
This was when the Patronaat was the old gymzaal.
Exactly.
From
yeah,
the
that
school,
was 2000,
right?
2001. Yeah. So and I know that Peter Koppe, the director, really didn't want to have me because I had these trousers with holes in it. I got long hair, and I wasn't prepared at all for to solicit for this thing. But Chef said, "No, you have to take him. You have to take him, and then I'll see what happens." Yeah.
Coming from chef who's a legend in his own way, that says something.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm still thankful, and he still works for the Patronaat. It's like I want to have these traditions going on because I like to have people stick with the Patronaat. I'm kind of loyal about these things. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have I know this maybe puts you in a bad situation, but do you have a preference between the, well, maybe it's based on nostalgia, but the old school setup of the Patronaat, okay, it was limited, smaller, Gimzaal, to the new sort of what people call the black box situation here in Holland.
Yeah. Well, for me, creatively, sorry. For me, the new Patronaat is way better.
Yeah.
Because the old venue was a capacity of 500. So you couldn't do anything for 100 people or 50 people. And I started up the Club Fun Day to have these smaller settings to invest in new music. But for Chef it was really hard to do alternative bands, because actually you always had to have at least 350, 400 people in the venue. And now, because we have 3 halls or even 4, we could do a lot more. We could build artists up in Haarlem, build an audience. So for me, it's much better. And I think the way the old cafe, the 3rd hall looks now, it's not a black box, it's okay.
That's great.
I think we spend most of the time as a programmer in this part of the building, because the main hall is easier to book than the small hall in a way.
In which way?
Because you have a lot of national artists who just want to play the main hall. So if you, I mean, for example, to book the Dijk, which I've been doing for 20 years, it's nice, because that's this loyalty thing as well. I'm always happy that they're there and they're happy to be at Patronaat, but looking for new music, small bands or DJs or whatever, is and to get them to Haarlem, it's much more work, and especially building up an audience, because then you have these artists and you think, okay, this is cool, but there's 10 people. You think, okay, now this needs to be bigger, and it happens. Artists who sell much more tickets in Haarlem than anywhere else in Holland, or even play the main hall. I mean, a lot of Dutch bands, the Staat or Chef Special, they all started very small. And I think Patronaat is very specific in that. We always invest, even in times like these. You have a lot of streaming sessions and it's with the bigger artists, but we actually do it with the alternative scene. And then you don't have as much viewers, but the viewers who are watching are very happy.
Yeah, that I recognize myself.
Yeah, yeah. And
So,
I think you need to build this infrastructure. It's not only booking bands, but you as a venue, especially as the only venue in Haarlem, you have to. I feel a responsibility to invest in this creativity in the whole town. It's not only Patronaat. That's why we work with a lot of other venues, churches, and do things on the beach, Caprera, but it's also building up a relation with people who make the whole city a better place.
So let's step off on that topic, the relationships with and what's going on with the other people in town, or in town and throughout the country. Have you had contact with other creative directors of other venues here in Haarlem and I guess other podiums throughout the country to find out what their situation is, how things are going? You know, you heard there was big news last week about the Melkweg and the Paradiso being in jeopardy.
Yeah. Yeah, so most directors are actually kind of panicking now, and because it's also hard to it's not a life-threatening thing that we're closed now. So you always have this discussion like everybody fights for their own business or their right, but you can always say, yeah, but the people are dying. So it's very difficult to make this a sort of public thing.
Why? Isn't culture part of the public sector as well?
Yeah, well, I think so. I think for me, it's my oxygen. So, and I think for a lot of people, but it's not that you die if you can't see any concerts. I mean, let's be realistic about that. But if this all is gonna change into a new reality, for me, it's very frustrating, especially for the youth. I mean, I've got a daughter, and I don't want her to grow up in a time like this. You know, I've had my share. I've seen my shows. I've done my thing. But for the youth, I think they need to crawl over each other and do their thing and just do anything which you do at that age, and that's hard, I think. So yeah, for the other venues, I mean, everybody knows this is gonna take a year, and we don't have the time. So it's real. It's not some marketing stunt that they're saying, oh yeah, we're gonna be closed. It's real. It's going to happen if this is taking their time.
Have there been venues who have been accused of making this a marketing stunt? Or?
No, but maybe for the bigger audience, they feel it that way. Because they think, oh, no. But it's not only for venues, it's for sports schools, it's for anything. Everybody has got a difficult time now. That's why I say this very specifically, that it's real. People don't know what they're gonna miss if this whole creative infrastructure is collapsing. That's not what life's about, I think. So, yeah. And it's not only Paradiso Melkweg, it's for Patronaat as well. Yeah.
And as the we see that the number of larger corporations are getting extra money from the government, stuff like KLM, of course, here in Holland, that's the big one. Do you get spiteful towards the way you see that other corporations, where the attention goes to, you know, the cultural sector, a lot of times, well, a number of years back, there was already major cutbacks in the cultural sector, subsidies and stuff like that. The whole terminology of the links hobbyist, links hobbyist was starting to thrown around. Do you think that I underappreciated, what do you call it, essential workers in this time?
It's also got to do with the lobbyists to the government. I mean, the farmers are very strong. They have like 30 people walking around in The Hague to tell their story. And in the music industry, it's kind of, in a lot of ways, it's still the 80s. Like, there's still this punk mentality that you have to, I don't know, be independent or whatever. It's very difficult to get everyone together and make this stand against the government to make it visible how important it is.
From the cultural sector.
Yeah, especially the music industry. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting as well, because I really put a lot of energy in a big streaming event with bigger artists, like a TV 24-hour kind of thing. And then I started talking with managers and bands and venues, and everybody had their own kind of story. And then I thought, holy shit, this is what the music industry is about. It's very very difficult. Yeah, and I think that's a pity, because if we would work more together, we could get a lot more fixed, I think.
Everybody had their own opinion how it should be or how it should look or what should be involved and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think the whole thing is a sort of interesting project. How people react to Corona, and it's interesting.
You mentioned earlier in the conversation about how you want to personally use this time to sort of clear your mind, to focus on what was happening in the world and what the world will look like as we move forward. How'd you do that? What sport, walk, run, yoga, meditation, anything?
Yeah. Well,
drugs.
With my lifestyle, it's always been important to do a lot of sport. So 3-4 times a week, I sport. I run. I do Bikram yoga. I do a lot of different things.
Why do you say that in conjunction with your lifestyle?
Well, my life is in the evening, in the night. It's always it tends to be with drinking or whatever, and so you have to stay in shape. And so I used to do that, but like the yoga, I couldn't do yoga anymore because it was all closed. So I still run, and that's what I do. But not running away from myself. And running always helps me to be creative, and I get a lot of ideas while running, so that's good. It's also dangerous because that's maybe what I meant. I'm always busy in my head, so if things stop, my head will just keep on getting these ideas. And I actually, maybe you can call it meditation, but I just wanted to take the time as well to just learn to taking things a bit slower, because I think that's the moment is now. And I see a lot of creative people around me who get really confronted with themselves, because it's a sort of a flucht, the way we live, doing a lot of shows, touring, and it's very easy not to think about yourself or what you're doing. So I thought it's good to take that moment now. And I think that counts for a lot of people in this situation. I see a lot of depressed or depressive people now, or getting depressed.
What would you recommend for them to do?
Well, work on it. Seek help, or talk about it, or just open up yourself to people around you. And maybe you can have parties with a lot of people where, you know, it's just fun and you actually don't talk about anything, and now's the time to just meet with 1 or 2 good friends and just talk about shit and try to get out of this as a better person.
All right, I think we're going to have to start winding up. My time is running out. Usually at this point I ask if the person being interviewed has anything else they'd like to add.
I think it was.
I think you said it. That was a great way to end it. So, Jeroen, thank you for your time. Good luck with everything with the Patronaat and with ET Explore Me. Of course, we look forward to getting down and getting sweaty with you guys again sometime soon.
Yeah.